If I could take one thing away from my time with Pete, it was be you. Be yourself, be the best version of who you are and what you can become.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Nope.
They roll coverage.
This one's going to be an interesting one. Dave finally decided to go on Talk with Up and Adams. Just came out this morning. There's been a lot of people kind of reacting to a bunch of different stuff. Course, Russell Wilson is on his mind, but let's jump into it with Dave.
And here's, Dave Canales, and behind us, somebody's stealing you. Oh, I'm sorry. This is when you were introduced for the first time. Dave, tell me about this.
Well, I don't know if you noticed right off the bat, I left the guy hanging right there in the intro. So we ended up fixing that later on in building in-house. So, but what a great reception from the building, the type of energy that we're looking to build here and really be about the players.
Okay. I agree. That was a great moment that he left the dude hanging. He was there with Tepper, got to see Dan Morgan and them come in, got a great warm welcome. I'm happy to have Dave, but of course I have my reservations. You guys know I'm a Panthers fan, but I'm also a realist, to be honest with you. We're at the point now where the Carolina Panthers are the laughingstock. We're the Arizona Cardinals of the NFL, and the Arizona Cardinals exist. But we're just in a weird position. So much so that while this interview just started, I'm looking in the background, and that little dude in the poncho sitting in the middle looks like Sir Purr. Just me. Anyways, let's move on to Dave. He's in a real tough spot, to be honest with you. Regardless of what he's about to say here, these are my reservations. He's a first-time head coach. Okay, we are expecting him to turn it around with a first-time OC. In Brad Idzik. Now, it's a former guy that worked with him. He's bringing in a lot more other people from Seattle, from Tampa, and now LSU. So we're bringing in some people. But last year, we went out and got a great all-star roster, and that didn't translate because we didn't have the pieces. So I think the underlying thing that's going to make or break Dave's job is the roster composition. Now, we've already silenced talk with Ryan Burns, though we have tagged him. We do not know what we're going to do in the wide receiver room. Are we going to trade? What are we going to do? I think I'm at the point now where I'm willing to trade to next year. Because in my opinion, we're going to have a top 10 pick next year. And I would rather trade my 33rd pick this year and just kind of do what I can to start the rebuild now. Rather than going all in now. We do not need to blow our load, trade up, do all this other stuff. We are not ready to win now anyways. So what is the thought process about us trading back in the draft? I know people are going to hate that. People are going to be like, man, we need to build now. But we need to protect Bryce. So maybe we go out there and we, trade some stuff around. Maybe we go get a veteran here or there. Do what we can and just try and start building. Now, people are not going to like that word. And Dave might not even like that because he needs to win soon. If we get anything like we did last year, Dave is on a short leash because, the Super Bowl winning head coach, Frank Reich, also was on a short leash. And in fact, the second most quickly fired coach in history. And we did that to our former first quarterback. So, no offense, Dave, you were never a part of the Carolina fandom. You know who was? Dan Morgan. That's why he's getting the opportunity, because he was with us previously, trying to do this right. But if Tepper is just pretending to be in the background, this is going to be a dumpster fire for a long time. And I'm really hoping Dave and Dan have the cojones or the backbone to stand up to Tepper so this way they can say, hey man, it's going to take us more than a single season or 6 or 10 games to turn this around. It's going to take us 2, maybe 3 full seasons with off seasons and all to really be at the point where we can contend and actually win playoff games. I don't care about getting to them. I care about winning those and actually becoming a Pantheon level team. Getting to a Super Bowl is the goal, period. And if we're not making steps to do that, it's going to be a bad time for Dave. So I've said my reservations. I need to let him speak. He deserves it.
It's be all about their development, all of us together.
What are you looking to build here?
I'm really looking to build a brand of football that we can be proud of, that the Carolinas can say, this is Panthers football. The great part is we got a great starting point with Ejiro Evero, our defensive coordinator. The continuity, what he was able to do in year one, I'm starting to learn more and more about this system, but as I see the intricacies of what they do, how he got them to communicate in year one is fantastic. And so have that to build off of, really important. And then, of course, on the offensive side is like, let's just get our football right. Let's get back to the basics. Let's hit our combos. Let's get our pass protections ID'd properly so then we can evaluate the talent. So if we give them a good foundation, then we can really evaluate what their maximum capabilities are. And that's really where my mind goes and my heart goes for our players.
I would agree. It's talent evaluation now, guys. Like, if we had good talent evaluation, we would have drafted Pat Surtain over JC Horn. If we were, better at talent evaluating, we might have gotten a different quarterback. We might have gotten different wide receivers. But we had bad talent evaluation. It comes in how does he fix that? When does he fix it, and to what degree? If it's a slight improvement, that means we're going to see a slight improvement, hopefully, over a long career. But if we're 2 years into this, and, Dave is just struggling to win 7 games, people aren't going to be happy about that. So I'd rather really punt on this draft and maybe see what we can do moving forwards, but I like what I'm hearing so far, at least.
How helpful is it to have some stability on the defensive side of the ball? Because you have the keys to the castle here. You come in, obviously, number 4 scoring defense last year. You have some studs on that defense, of course, but Evero was able to get them to play at such a high level. What was the moment that you said, I'm going to keep him?
Well, I mean, to me, coming into the job, this was like a dream scenario for me to say, the defensive side is in good hands. How can I then just focus on building this offense the right way, starting it from the ground up, starting it inside out, and making sure that we can play a brand of football that we're proud of? And I think what I can bring in addition to the defensive side is this cohesive identity where we run the ball, we play great defense, and we run like crazy on special teams, and that becomes us. That becomes Panthers football, and that's what our fan base expects to see on TV or when they come into our stadium. They expect to see that brand week in and week out.
And this.
I would agree with that. And I think the underlying thing that people really haven't talked about, and I have made a video about it. In fact, I made a few of them. If you want to go check out in the description, we've got our 9-part mini-series, Who is Dave Canales? Deep dive into him and where he came from. On top of that, I did one about Brant Tillis. Brant Tillis was the money guy for the Chiefs and how they established this little dynasty they've got going. He was the one that was able to get that Patrick Mahomes contract done. He was the one able to make everything work. So with that, them losing him and now us gaining him, I'm hoping that we can continue to build. But you got to remember, we have a lot of people that need to be paid right now. Frankie Louvu, DB, Ryan Burns. So yes, Evero had a top 4 scoring defense last year. But if you looked at that defense and thought that they were good, I'm sorry, I don't know what kind of brand of football you were watching. So I don't think that Evero is this top tier, retaining hire. He didn't really get traction anywhere else. So I think that with the stink, with the ownership and everything like that, I did make a video before we even hired Dave where I was like, hey man, he could be a really good head coach down the line. Did I think he'd be my Carolina Panthers head coach? Hell no. Did I want him? There was better options. But the problem is we have David Tepper. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care if you say you don't know ball. People care about ownership. Ownership is one of the 4 horsemen. Again, ownership, GM, head coach, and quarterback. If those 4 are pushing all in the same direction, you have a winner. The problem is last year, we have it confirmed by Diana Rossini and Joe Person that not only was the head coach, but multiple other people had coaches plus the GM go behind the head coach's back to backstab him, to say this isn't working, this is there. They called it the Hunger Games, guys. That didn't come from Frank Reich. Frank Reich was regarded as one of the nicest people in the NFL. He was one of the, actually, I believe he was given an A in the NFL Players Association ratings. So if next year Dave Canales gets a B+, I'm sorry, it's a step back. Now, regardless of my views on Frank Reich, I don't think he was the right person for that moment because Tepper wanted immediate success, and nobody was going to give that. I've long said that Jesus Christ himself would not fix my Carolina Panthers in 1 year. So I'm worried for you, Dave. I genuinely am. And talent evaluation is where it needs to come at first. We need to retain these players. Yes, it's nice to have Everell back, but man, if we end up trotting out Adam Thielen and Laviska Shenault next year at wide receiver, no offense, I don't think we're going to win a whole lot of games again, regardless of what Dave wants to do. So I'm in this weird spot. I'm in a weird spot with my Panthers fandom. I don't really know where to go from here. I want to believe in you, Dave. You, this man right here, I want to believe. I just need something. Give me a good offseason. Give me a preseason week 1 win, and I'm on board. If you don't build a good roster, though, which again, I'm going to do a full roster breakdown at some point, I just don't know what we're going to do, man. I identified last year that the roster wasn't ready. I just hope Dave can make this roster ready.
Team very well, because you take them on. You were, of course, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by way of Seattle, where you were with Pete Carroll for so long. Somebody in the crowd said you're the second coming of Pete Carroll.
Well,
I won't say who.
Those are really big shoes to fill, and I mean that, literally and figuratively.
Okay. What size is it? What is he, like a size 15? What do you mean?
I don't know, but they're
right.
special. They're special made shoes. But anyway, between that and just who he is, I think one of the things that I learned from him, if I could take one thing away from my time with Pete, it was be you. Be yourself, be the best version of who you are and what you can become.
Real quick, I'm 100% convinced that person in the yellow in the middle is Sir Purr. I don't care what anybody says.
So for me, I think it's just like not being concerned with what he did, but how he did it and the things that were so important to him. And we see that blueprint across the league with these successful head coaches that have had tenures that built good championship-style football for a long time. They all care about the same thing. It's taking care of the ball. Mm-hmm. It's taking it away on defense. It's having great effort, running like crazy, and playing smart in situational football. Those are the key pillars, the key tenets that a good football foundation is built on. So that's really what I want to do here, and just try to inject my energy, my personality into what we're doing here on the field.
And see, that's something that if you watch my original video, I did a breakdown of him where he was at the podium talking after a Bucs win, I believe, against the Saints. And yeah, he's got a very infectious personality. He seems like a great person. He's very open about his past and about the demons that he's overcome. And I think a lot of people will be able to latch on to that. Now, the other part of it, and the thing that I've asked a few people about here and there, is where does Dave Canales begin and his off the field stuff end? The reason why I bring that up is a lot of the staff, and again, I've kind of brought this up as like a Christ in Carolina thing, where he's a very, very devout Christian. He brought in another person who's spoken at a lot of Christian camps. Bryce is obviously a very faith-focused person. So it's very interesting to see how many of these people, gravitate to that and how that will translate to the community. Give me your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that it matters at all? I mean, there's plenty of people that, throw glory to God and everything like that, but you don't really hear a whole lot of them, running Christian camps and doing all these things, like going and speaking with people, which you would know because it was one of the episodes of the Who is Dave Canales miniseries. So
some stability on defense, which we love. And then on offense, you brought in Idzik with you.
Idzik's another person that has spoken at a lot of Christian camps and is involved in a lot of Christian organizations. Again, not a negative, not a positive in my opinion, but it's something. The
youngest offensive coordinator in the National Football League at 32 now. He was with you, of course, in Seattle. You brought him to Tampa. Now he's your OC. It shows a lot about how you value him.
Oh, yeah. And in 2023, I kind of like to have a word for the year.
Okay.
I'm not into resolutions, but my word for 2023 was covered. And I want to make sure that we're covered. The accountability piece, all those things, the buzzwords kind of in the corporate world. For me, it was like, if we can have open conversations, if I can do a great job at listening to my staff, listening to my players, then I'll feel covered. Brad, is piece number one for that. It was in Tampa. I wanted to make sure, as my first time being an offensive coordinator, I had someone who was going to cover me in my
Bye-bye, Sir Purr.
blind spots. Where are the places that I might be drawn somewhere else, but I have somebody who says, hey, don't forget about this, this, and this. OTAs are coming up, or training camps coming up. Hey, here comes the bye week. Remember, this is how we do these things. And I really feel covered by Brad, so I knew when I got a chance to be a head coach, he was going to be a part of that in some capacity. And it's just been really cool to have him, to see him grow, to see him really take that leadership role as we have these conversations, to lead the charge of it. So really important.
Russell, Gino.
Yeah, I mean, Idzik seems like the best opportunity because he's going to groom Idzik into being a good offensive coordinator while being able to still call plays, because Canales is going to retain play calling. So I think it's just going to take time. I'm just very, very hesitant. Everyone kept telling me, man, if anybody can fix Bryce, it's going to be Dave. I'm really hoping he's got the juice to be able to do it.
Baker, what is it about you that gets the best out of these young men at quarterback?
Well, I truly mean this. Those names you mentioned, those guys have a lot of football under their belt. And so I wanted to leverage their experience. I wanted to leverage their expertise. The biggest thing, like talking to Gino and then talking to Baker, was you've seen every coverage. You've seen every exotic blitz that they can throw at you.
And there's value in that, yeah.
Absolutely. With all the coordinators.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with Bryce. He played at Alabama. He's played at a high level. He's seen high-level schemes. Obviously, it's college. So it's a little different. He's now gone through a full year. He wasn't able to process at even the same level Baker was. But Baker had considerably better weapons, so that has to factor into it. It's where the weapons come in now. How does Bryce have the ability to get stuff done when he doesn't have anything to do it with?
Had experience with, you've had a chance to run pretty much every pass play you can think of.
Yep.
Every run alert system, all the different language. Guys, you got everything you need. Here's what we're going to do, and now trust what you see. And I think that leads to a really confident level of play. I think that leads to like a really fast level of play where if I have all these things kind of in buckets in my mind, then I can just be in player's mind. And I can just be in that flow and try to get them to that point. And then on top of it, it's relationship. It's building an environment where I'm interested in this person maximizing their capabilities. I want to make sure we get every single drop out of Russell, Gino, Baker, and now here comes Bryce. And how can I get Bryce to play to his fullest capabilities? And it all starts with relationship. It starts with that connection piece. They know me. I know them. So as we work through hard things, there isn't this like, this is mine and this is yours. It's this collaborative thing of shoulder to shoulder.
That word collaborative is going to be thrown around a billion times. So before anything gets going, the word of 2024 for the Carolina Panthers is collaborative. Okay.
Really on a journey together and just taking on challenges side by side, as opposed to like, I am your biggest challenge to get to where you want to go.
I've never met you before, but I just want to say I get it. I get it. I understand. I love talking to you. I'm loving the ways that you're so measured and thoughtful.
This goes back to my S2 video, which if you've watched it, make sure you have. If not, make sure you go find it. Where I think so many people are going into these interviews just so well equipped, so well ready to solve all of these problems. Or just ready to answer the questions that I think it might skew people sometimes, that maybe, we're going to get to the point where coaches know exactly what to say. So if they all say the right thing, how are you really separating them? So that's a whole separate argument for a whole separate day. But I agree, Dave says the right things in the right moment. It's just, is that something that he truly believes? Or is that something that he has ingrained in himself to say because it's the right thing to say?
About how you approach things. You mentioned experience as a bucket, a big bucket, and leaning on that. You don't have that with Bryce. You talk about relationships. You're just starting to build this relationship with this young quarterback. What is your approach?
Yeah, right to the first off, tell me your story. I got to meet him just for a small windows last year in the evaluation process. And then I wanted him to know where I come from, how I've gotten to this point, the things that are important to me. Not that like, hey, what's important to me should be important to you. I don't mean that. I mean,
Okay, so that at least answers a little bit because, of course, his faith is going to be something that comes up. So they probably had that conversation. I like that he immediately drops that nugget that's like, hey, just because I like it doesn't mean you have to. So that gives me a little bit of pause with my thoughts on the whole, Church of Carolina theory.
I just want him to know who's talking to him, who's asking him to do these hard things, so that we can really just dissolve those boundaries and that, just that really cut coach player thing, where it's like, no, we're in this together. We're all trying to help the Panthers win football games, but he's got a lot of experience, a lot of big stage wins, the Heisman, a lot of pressure, things that he's had to deal with. I'm going to lean on that experience. I'm going to lean on his poise. One of the first things I mentioned about Bryce is when you watch him play in college football and you saw him in those big games on TV, whether it was early in the season or whether it was later in the season against really good opponents, if you look behind the face mask, the eyes are the same. His countenance is the same. And he's just cold-blooded. And so those things were what really,
I'm sorry, 2,800 yards and 12 touchdowns over 16 games is not good enough to be called cold-blooded. Again, I'm a Panthers fan. I want us to succeed. But this idea that Bryce went out there and did his thing and like, oh my God, we have the dude, is so far from reality that, yeah, like look at the stats, 28, 77, 11, and 10. Like, come on.
Oh,
and I don't think that even takes into account his fumbles that he lost. So
encouraged me to say this is going to be the top guy coming out because he's the guy. He is him. Is that what people say nowadays?
He is him.
Yeah. So,
sure. You just called Bryce Young cold-blooded. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I
how
like
feel
hearing
about
that.
And so now it's about just giving him tools, giving him the green light to use those tools in an appropriate fashion and playing a brand of offensive football that we're proud of.
Read that, though. 62 sacks last year.
Yeah.
He was hit 115 times, second most in the league. He's cold-blooded.
yeah, he's cold-blooded because they were trying to put him in a coffin.
You got to protect him, and I have a feeling a lot of that has to do with timing, which I feel like you are obsessed with. What is your relationship with stopwatches?
Oh yeah, it's great. So I had Tom Moore last year, 84-year-old coach who's sitting right there, and he's like watching that clock, and if it was pretty late, he's looking over at me. So I look over at Baker, look over here. It's like, hey, Tom's on our butt here. We better get the ball out quickly. But it actually goes back to our time in Seattle and just kind of taking the averages and how long can we expect pass protection to hold up on a regular basis, And so, for us, it was always like that 2.7, 3 seconds to the check down, and you're moving to get to it. So having that clock in your mind where this play, the protection is going to dissolve at some point. We need to start having a plan for moving down the field. But just building the whole scheme that way. We just said, why wouldn't we just build a pass game that's centered around getting the ball out quickly? And now I can give the offensive line confidence to go ahead and get confident in your sets, guys. This ball is coming out, where they don't have to start to anticipate.
It's going to make all the difference if you can get that stopwatch working with this offensive line and this quarterback. I can't wait to see what you guys can do in this division that you know so well.
I would agree, but I think our division is solely predicated on what happens with the Bucs quarterback signing and the Atlanta signing. If Atlanta gets Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields, I'm going to pick Atlanta to win the division, period. If they sign either of those two, shit. If they sign Russell Wilson, I'm picking the Falcons. The pieces they have, the defense, everything they've got going for them are ready to win now. The Carolina Panthers, regardless of what Bryce Young is, we could take Bryce Young and drop him in Atlanta, and I guarantee he wouldn't win the division. Even with those pieces, Bryce still needs a little bit more time to develop. You're right, we really need to develop the pass protection. We need to establish a run game. Most people want us to get rid of Miles Sanders. So there's a lot of things that need to be solved. But ultimately, it's up to Bryce to make that next step. And if he doesn't take the next step, then we need to figure out what next is. Again, I'm really, really, really all eggs in the basket for Bryce. But if he goes next year and throws 22 touchdowns, that's not good enough for a former number one pick, just like 11 touchdowns wasn't good enough. So he needs a really, really good year, and it's got to come with the help of this guy, Dan Morgan, and of course, Brant Tillis.
Absolutely. I'm excited about it. And then, just talking about the sacks and all that, if you watched some of the big hits Bryce took, the few plays that followed were some of his biggest throws. And so to watch him again, just kind of reestablish, refocus, however he does that, and recenter, which I'm really curious to hear what his in-game process is, because I know he has one. It's evident out there that he'll just bounce right back. He'll stand in there with courage, and he'll throw a strike on the next play.
He says that, and I understand that's what you've got to say to the number 1 pick. But if you literally take the Packers game out, Bryce Young threw 8 touchdowns in 15 games. That's not good enough, period. I don't care what you have to say. That means he'd be at, 2,500 yards as well? That's good enough? That's cold-blooded?
My gosh, now you're in this division, you're in a weird spot here. You like Baker, you worked with Baker, you got the best out of Baker, and now, are you rooting for him to get this deal that he gets to come back and do his thing with Mike Evans officially, or are you kind of rooting against it because you don't have to take him on twice a year?
Yeah, well, I think the more resources he, occupies for the Bucs, the less, great players they can add to the team. So let's go ahead and pay that guy whatever he wants, and
pay Baker Mayfield.
That was kind of in the works all along. Let's get this market going up here, so give us the advantage again.
We love that.
That's a perfect answer, by the way. Hilarious.
It's your ship. There are a lot of people on Twitter. I said I was coming to Carolina. They make the Russell Wilson connection right away. Yeah. He hasn't.
And I understand that. I understand the low cap hit, but to be honest, you have a former number 1 pick. Unless we're flipping Bryce Young for a 5th round, or the 5th overall pick, it's got to be Bryce.
He hasn't looked the same since you were there. It's true. It's a huge credit to you what you were able to get out of him in your time in Seattle. Then he goes on to the Broncos. It doesn't work out. You could bring Russell in here. I'm seeing tweets about it all day long on my timeline. Why won't you? Or why don't you?
Well, this is not the situation for Russ, but what I will say about him is
I would agree. His situation is Pittsburgh, the Giants, or the Bears, to be honest with you. Shit, go to the Vikings. Go over there, go sign with the Vikings, go throw the ball to Jay Jettas and Jordan Addison. Go up there. That'd be good. I know he's a former Bears fan, or his wife is, or something like that. So I know there's a little bit of a connection up there. But there's some interesting ones. I personally think the Giants, Pittsburgh, but apparently Pittsburgh wants to just roll with Pickett, and I don't understand why. So going to be a weird one. Those 3 quarterbacks, most likely 2 if Justin Fields doesn't get traded, Kirk and Russell will completely change the NFL as a whole, depending on where they go.
Taking that chance and that opportunity to go to Denver, I really admire him for that. I really admire the courage it took to say, I'm going to branch out away from what I'm comfortable with, and certainly guys like me who was with him for all 10 years, and the level of comfort that comes from, I know exactly what he wants, what he needs, what he's going to ask for. I can anticipate those things. And he really gambled on himself to go and try to do something a different way to see what that could become. So, and what it's become, hey, the film's out there, but I really credit him for that.
I love that. Okay, last one for you. Your experience here in Carolina, the warm embrace by the fans, what you want for them, what you want to say to them as we sit here in Charlotte with, there's the Sir Purr.
I was right. Let's go.
Just hanging out, chilling behind us, trying to steal the show. What do you want to say to sort of the fan base and what they can expect? We got the draft, Julius Peppers Hall of Fame induction, a game in Germany this year, so much to look forward to.
Yes, but we just need incremental. Don't come out here and sell me in playoffs. Don't come out here and sell me 7 games. Tell me Bryce Young is going to get sacked less than 50 times. Tell me Bryce Young is going to eclipse 3,500 yards and 27 touchdowns, and I will sign the ticket right now. I'll take it. But if you're telling me that we're going to win 4 games and we just blew up that coaching staff and did what we did to our previous head coach, along with so much more, McCown, Deuce Staley, and just everything that happened last year, I'm not going to be a happy fan.
I mean, there's just a lot of excitement, and I want to ride the momentum of getting here in just a really fantastic organization. Every time I peel a layer back, it's just like, look what's in place here, and I have to get credit to the people that were here.
What's in place here is an owner that is telling us that concerts are the jam. That's why we, care so much about football, is because of concerts. He vetoed the last head coach's quarterback pick. He moved from a grass field to a turf field. He raised prices after he had the worst season in the NFL. So no offense, he's garbage.
Here before me for just putting some of those pieces in place so that I can come and just get our football right and make it about the ball.
Don't worry. Like I said, Nicole and David Tepper took care of the concerts. You don't even have to worry about that.
And that's been the emphasis for us this whole off season is how can we just get back to the fundamentals of ball, and then we can start to showcase our talent. But I think, for Panthers fans, for the Carolinas, it's show up as you show up to practices, as you show up to games. Starting in the preseason, we're going to take those games as serious as any of them. Hopefully they come out here and they see just great effort. They see people straining to finish plays. I hope that they see a lot of juice, a lot of excitement along the sideline with the coaches, just really encouraging each other, celebrating the things to celebrate. I hope they see a toughness about our ball, starting with the run game and the defense and special teams. I hope they can see that toughness. And then finally, I hope they see us make some really smart decisions, end of half, end of games. Wow, that was a really good way to keep the clock running, or that was an excellent usage of clock to get us into a scoring play. I hope that they can see that type of brand of football for a long time, and I'm committed to bringing that on a daily basis. It's about every day just waking up, got a new set of downs, it's 1st and 10, where are we going today? We're just trying to find a win. Can we define what that looks like today on March 6th?
Make it.
Again, March 6th, that's when I'm recording it. Again, that's the right answer. But is that even possible with David Tepper? Not sure. I'm rooting for him. I want him to succeed. I don't want to be a fan of a garbage team. I don't want to be the one where people are like, man, you're poverty franchise. That's not what I want. I want to be like, man, I'm a Carolina Panthers fan. We won a Super Bowl, or we did this, or we did that. Not, yeah, man, we suck again. I originally became a Panthers fan for a multitude of reasons, but one of which is when I finally decide to go in big on a sport, I never pick a top tier team. Would have never picked to be a New England fan if I could have done that, or a Steelers fan or nothing like that. I wanted to start on the ground level and really love a team through the hard times, because when the good times happen, I'm going to be there with everybody. That's why I went with the Panthers. I was already a Duke fan. I was already a Carolina Hurricanes fan. There was already so many other things. I just finally needed to make that jump to being a Panthers fan, and I'm glad I did, regardless of how tough it is at times.
About the ball, which is what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing here on March 6th. Why are you at the facility? What are you even working on? You're working hard all day today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got free agency, we got the combine, the draft. Combine's behind us. Offensively, we're working on scheme, so we're doing a lot of teaching, bringing some guys in from Tampa, from Seattle, kind of seeing the different directions we went with the offense.
Very cool.
In 2 different places, and then selfishly, the thing that I love, my curious by nature, like I sit in our defensive self scout, and this is a defensive scheme I've been going against for a long time. And just to hear the ins and outs of it, the tools that they use, the communication lines, the little micro adjustments, that's where I just feel like I'm at a coach's convention again, and I'm sitting in a clinic just kind of listening to these pros.
That's what you love the most, I can
Absolutely.
tell.
And so for me to sit back, take notes, and really connect with the defensive staff, all of that. And of course, Tracy Smith and Darren Bates on the special team side.
A shout out Darren Bates, even though he cooked me for telling him he should go to Bojangles. That's besides the point. I'm glad to have Darren Bates on this team. Really just evaluating players and who can we use more, and what type of special teams unit are we going to be, because we got a punter who's got a lot of different skills.
You are you're a sick pup is what I call you. Like, you're the sick pup who's talking to me about the punter right now on March 6th. And that's all you need to know. I get it. I'm ready to run through a wall for you, Coach. So I'm so happy to meet you. Congratulations. You have a lot to go figure out. Luke Kuechly somewhere in the building. You can get in his head a little bit. And, Brian Burns on line 1. Get out of here. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to him. Luke Kuechly was there, and he wants us to go get a kid from NC State. So we might want to think about actually listening to that advice. But this has been the whole episode. I thought Dave went out there, delivered strikes every time. Of course, that's what he's continually done. I'm very excited for the future, but again, this offseason is integral to the future of our team. What pieces do we add? Which ones do we remove? How do we upgrade this team? We've already cut Hayden Hurst. The rumor is we're going to trade or cut Dante Jackson. Tagged Brian Burns. There's a lot of opportunities here and a lot of flesh on the bones when it comes to change. Are we trying to swing for the fences and do it this year? Because if not, I think we should explore trading back in the draft.
That's just my thought. Stupid old me. My name is Nick. This has been Roll Coverage. I appreciate you rolling with me. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day. Peace.